I might as well get into this question now I had about him. Like, do you think he's a full-time Maple Leaf next year? And if so, does he strictly play in the top 6? Because when I saw Robertson play last season, and even the year before, like he was in the playoffs and stuff, I watch him play. And if he plays on the third or fourth line, I think he's just completely invisible. If he plays, 9 minutes a night, even 12 minutes a night or something, I think that's a waste. Like, I think he needs to get a full-time opportunity in the top 6, but I'm just not sure he's ready yet. So how do you feel on Robertson? Do you think he's close? Is he there?
I agree. I do think he's close, but ultimately close, at this stage just kind of means you're a bit of a, I guess for lack of a better term, a tweener, somebody who can go up and down, but you're not really, defined in either. I think in terms of answering your question of whether he's a top 6, well, name the top 6 that's coming back next year. It's Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, probably Kerfoot, unless you move him, but right now he's on contract, and Michael Bunting. Is Nick Robertson better than any of those 6? No, he's not. So then you're talking about, okay, can he play on your third line or your fourth line? And the game now is different, and roster construction is different than it was 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Like your fourth line doesn't have to be these big bruisers, your Colton Orrs, the fourth line that we saw when the Leafs lost to the Bruins in 2015. But you still, as I've kind of hammered down a few times now, you need to have a defined role, and you need to know what your job is when you do see the ice, especially if you're going to play fourth line and play, 7-8 minutes a night. Those 7-8 minutes need to be effective. Nick Robertson, in my opinion, hasn't showed me that he's, a player who's going to play on your shutdown line, or is going to kill penalties, or is even going to provide some energy in the time that he's out there. I think he's shown potential as a skilled player, as a goal scorer. He's got a great release. He's a good skater. But I don't know if I see a position for him to thrive in the role that he might be, more comfortable in right now on this team. So, for me, I think I'll be looking in the preseason for whether he can adapt, whether he can change his game a little bit to fit a role that may be open for him. And if he can't, then that's a player with some potential that you may look at moving in a deal. But he's a good prospect. He's been plagued by injuries the last couple seasons, which is unfortunate. But if you're the Leafs, you can only hope that he's gonna be even 75% of the player that his brother is down in Dallas.
Oh, that'd be incredible, wouldn't it, if he was even remotely close to what Jason is?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to ask. Like, if he doesn't crack the roster in a role where he's going to benefit out of camp, do you think it makes more sense for the Leafs to explore trade options then, when they're kind of admitting that, he's not good enough to play a top 6 role? Or do you think it makes more sense in the off season to explore trade options before you even have the opportunity to evaluate him with the lineup? Because the Leafs are obviously in their window. Like, they have to win now. Like, they essentially have another 2 years of 2 of their core players under contract, and then 3 years after that, Tavares and Marner come up. So it's like, the window is closing, as much as I hate to say it, and that's not saying it will definitively close. I think they find a way to get extensions done with those players. But my point is, would it make sense to explore trade options for Nick Robertson to bring in a player to play in the top 6 who will make an impact? Because we know the second line struggled with scoring last season, and that second line mostly composed of either Ilya Mikheyev or Alex Kerfoot on the left wing, and then Tavares and Nylander, which just hasn't worked, especially when you look at their 5-on-5 production numbers. I believe in their last 2 seasons, their 5-on-5 expected goals is like a really high percentage. It's like nearing like 55-56%, something like that. I'd have to look it up. But their actual goals, I believe they're getting outscored by a couple goals at 5-on-5. So like, for 2 of your core pieces to put them together in the second line, it's just not working. So I wonder if exploring trade options with with your key piece, like your golden chip, and that's Nick Robertson. I wonder if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and ultimately, nothing's ever owed to anybody at the NHL level. You have to do what's best for your team. But I think in this case, you've put a lot of time and effort into developing this prospect, and yes, there's been some injuries, and he's had a few opportunities to play at the level here and there. But I would still like to see what he can bring, with a full summer of training here, come into the off season. And if you're Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas, then you want to, give him as good of an opportunity as you possibly can as a player who you have high hopes for in your system. Whether that's putting him on the third line and saying, hey, figure it out. You're going to be playing some tough minutes here. Like you're still going to have your chance to score 15, 20 goals, 25 goals on that line. But, you're going to also have to play some defensive zone minutes and maybe kill a penalty here and there, see what he's like there. And, you also have the option, as you've just kind of said, like, if something's not working in your top six and you want to, retry the Nylander experiment where you move him in with David Kampf and guys on that line, then that's one of the first guys for Nick Robertson, that you'd be looking to move up and put in that role. So I think if it was me, I wouldn't be shopping him this summer. If you get a call and it's an offer that is difficult to turn down, then you do what you do. But I think you just let the summer play out with him. There's no rush. You have time on your side. See what comes out of training camp, and if things don't work out there and he ends up getting sent back down to the Marlies, then my guess, as somebody who's dealt with hockey players in the past, is that it may not even be your decision as to whether you want to trade him or not. You may get a call from the agent. So
yeah, see, like, first of all, I'm glad that you said it's probably prudent to hold on to him, because I feel the same way, and I felt the same way about Timothy Liljegren too over the years, and we saw what kind of player he turned into this past season. And I'm happy that we kind of rode it out with this player, and I feel like they should do the same with Nick Robertson. But the reason I asked that question is because Leafs media, man, like anywhere you look, it's just like, trade Nick Robertson for a goalie. And like later in this episode, we'll get into it. I have a couple mock trades for a goalie, a couple in particular, and because I may be on that train, but I don't think Nick Robertson.
I'll just say it interrupts. Sorry, and we'll save the meat of the discussion for later. But you're not getting a number one goalie straight up for Nick Robertson.
No,
so.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, but I mean, it seems like that's what everybody's saying. It's like 25th overall pick and Nick Robertson and something else, and then it's like, holy, what if Robertson turns into, like you said, even 75% of what his brother is, and then it's like a Mason Marchment situation, and he excels somewhere else. Not that they could have known how good Marchment was going to be at the time, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess in that case, you just hope for something similar that happened with Jack Campbell, where you trade Trevor Moore along with a couple other pieces, and he's become a very effective player for the Kings. He was great in the first round against Edmonton, but you also got a number one goalie back, or your number one goalie back in that deal. So, yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then you wish all the best to the player. Hopefully, he develops into something, and it's a good deal for both sides. But yeah, we'll save that discussion for a little bit here.
Yeah.